Thank you everyone for coming out. Before we start, big shout out to Christine, Jane, and Mike Dickerson. They're the ones who organized this, so let's give them a round of applause, please. So we're all here to remember Joe, and I think the best person who knew Joe was Christine. And I'm just going to give the mic over to Christine, and she's going to tell us who Joe was.
I'm not really familiar with these, so can everybody hear me okay? I wore a cat sweatshirt tonight because, as everybody I think knows by now, Joe is a huge cat fan, especially a big fan of his cat Jezebel. I was wondering if anyone brought any cat memorabilia or a picture of their cat, or if you have a cat, just shout out to cat lovers for Joe. Jezebel is doing well. She's being cared for by her neighbors. I think it's probably very healing for them to have her in their care right now. I did write some stuff down. Of course, now I gotta get it open. We don't have any more time. We ran out of time to spend getting to know Joe. I think we were all really getting to know him through outreach, and it was just heartbreaking that time was up, and we ran out of time getting to know him, and we also ran out of time trying to help Joe. There was just no more time. He was our friend. He was a good man with kind eyes, a gentle demeanor. He lived for his sweet cat. He loved more than anything. He was confident in his being and his opinions, even when he was down. He was always thinking of others, the people on his block, those of us who came to visit him. He was looking out for everyone, and I mean everyone, at all times. My friends and my family, we all bonded with Joe, just like we would with any neighbor in our neighborhood. Although Joe's circumstances were certainly a lot more dire than most of our neighbors. To Joe, look at everyone who's gathered here today in your memory. This is such an outstanding group of compassionate people, all of you. Fellow kind souls, animal enthusiasts, friends to cats. Joe was making friends with people like us, and had he lived, I know he would have been an advocate for other people like him. All of us imagined that a bridge home would have been the perfect transition for Joe into permanent housing with Jezebel, and he wouldn't go anywhere without her. We could have housed him right here in his neighborhood, in Koreatown, but it didn't happen because it didn't happen fast enough. We're just not moving fast enough. We have this huge group here, and Joe's story is getting shared really widely at this point. But let's remember that actually there was nothing extraordinary about what happened to Joe. The crazy circumstances you might have read about leading up to his death were actually normal circumstances for most people living on the street. They weren't really any different for anyone living in tents on your block or anywhere in Koreatown. These crisis circumstances that Joe lived through are normal circumstances for people on the street. We tried our best to be there for Joe, and I'm so sorry, Joe, what we did, it wasn't enough. We couldn't help you the way that you needed soon enough. And we keep saying this is a crisis, so we don't have time to waste discussing this anymore. We don't have time for arguments or agendas, whatever your group's agenda is. This is an emergency, and we were crying out, and yet even while we were crying out, we lost Joe. Joe is not the first person to die on the streets of LA, and he won't be the last, but maybe he's the first person that you know by name, or you know a little bit about his story, or his cat. So we bonded with him in his memory. What are we going to do about it? And how soon can we get it done? Because this is an emergency, and there's no time to waste. And if you agree with this for Joe, who was a church-going man, please say amen.
Amen. Amen.
So speaking next is a sitting city council president of Wesson, who's been fighting for these bridge housing shelters. He wanted to be here, and he's here. And Council President.
Thank you, Mel. You know, in all of my years in this business, I have never used one of these damn things. So I hope you can hear me, and I hope it's working right. Look, I did not have the pleasure to know Joe, but I know Christine, I know Mike, I know Jane, I know Mel, I know Scott, and I know many of you that are here today. I just want you to know that I have been engaged in a lot of battles in my life. None like the battle to take people off the street and put them in a safe environment where they can have a second chance at life. And sometimes I get depressed, and sometimes I get down, but it's people like all of you that always recharge me, regenerate me, and other people in government. I am proud to say that we will have a bridge home facility less than a half a mile from the very spot that we're on now. The support for that project is unbelievable. Kind-hearted people like yourselves are supporting it. All of the neighborhood people are supporting it. I cannot believe that this is happening. So this makes me truly feel that you are making a difference, not me. In order for us to do what we need to do to help people like Joe, it's going to take the public to change the mindset of the public. It's going to take you every day helping our army grow. And I love you for that. I appreciate that. And I came by today just to stand with some of my friends. I jokingly said to them that I even drove myself, which is dangerous, okay? And I just wanted to be here, no staff, nobody but me, so that I could stand with you. One thing that I am going to do next week is I'm going to make the city council rise after the siren. The city council will rise and we will adjourn in the memory of Joe. We're going to try to put a face on him so that other Angelinos know that people do really care. And I can't say enough for the group that Jane and Christine and Mel, so many of you started. The first time we hit triple digits, 100 degrees, they were out, and many of you passing out water, doing assessments, trying to establish a relationship with the people that stay on the street. Christine notified me when Joe passed away. This is a guy who had little to no means, but somehow he scraped together a few bucks so that he could buy a dress for her brand new baby, which I recommended that she name her Vina. She did not take my recommendation. She named her Rose. But that's the kind of man that he was. And people need to know that he lived here, and that there are many other Joes, and we need to make a commitment to help them. So thank you. Keep doing what you're doing. You give people like me strength to continue to fight the good fight. And I will the last thing that I will say is that when we go home tonight and curl up in our bed, we should give a thank you. And remember that there are individuals that will not have that opportunity. And until we get those people off the street, off the alleys, out of the parks, and into some kind of monitored, comfortable living arrangements, then none of our work is done. So, God bless Joe. They're going to take care of him. Christine, I'm sure there's a whole bunch of cats up there with him right now, and we have to just continue to go out, and we will take people off the street and give them a safe, clean place to live and a second chance at a normal life. Thank you for inviting me. Thank you, Jane. Thank you, Mel. Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Scott. Thank you.
So next up is Mike Dickerson, and Mike and Jane co-founded Shelter for K-Town, and the reason they co-founded it is because they saw a protest right here against a shelter that was going to go up, and they were like, okay, we're not going to stand for this, we are going to stand for helping people. And since then they've been pushing support for the bridge housing facility in Koreatown. So Mike?
I've also never used one of these before, so I'll do my best. My name is Mike. I met Joe doing outreach with Shelter K-Town. Sorry, my name is Mike. I met Joe doing outreach with Shelter K-Town. I'm sad and I'm angry. I'm sad because Joe deserves better. Joe shouldn't have spent the last year of his life living on the streets. I'm angry because we're letting Joe down, and we're still letting more people down who are just like him. I'm sad and I'm angry. I'm sad because Joe was a sweet man, and we've all lost that. He was a guy who really gave of himself even when he had very little. Joe was someone who cared. I'm angry because we've all allowed ourselves to ignore these problems for too long. Me, you, the city. We're all letting things slide when we need a change. I'm sad and I'm angry. I'm sad because Joe was the kind of person who should have been rehoused sooner, but we haven't got the resources. I'm angry that instead of being offered a place to go, Joe was repeatedly moved around by police and sanitation. I'm sad and I'm angry. I'm sad because in this city, there are far too many stories that are just like Joe's. I'm angry because in the wealthiest country in the world, in a city with many billionaires, we've decided this isn't something that we're going to fix. But I'm also hopeful. I'm hopeful because people in the city want to do the right thing. Let's make sure we keep giving everyone opportunities to be on their neighbor's side. I'm hopeful because all of you are here to celebrate Joe's life. I'm hopeful because I've met so many people who are trying to fix these problems. I want everyone to take a moment and think about why you're here tonight. Whatever brought you here, whether you're sad or angry or just trying to be with others or just missing someone you knew, let's all strive to follow the impulses that brought us here and that make us care about our neighbors. Joe, we're going to miss you.
Thank you, Mike. Next up is the other co-founder of Shelter for K-Town, Jane. And between Jane, Mike, Christine, since the whole issue started, they've also been doing outreach, like the council president said. In 100-degree weather, these guys are out helping people, and that's how they met Joe. So I'm going to turn it over to Jane.
Hi. I've never used this before, and I hope that this works. So I just want to talk about how we met Joe. We met Joe on the streets, just a few blocks away from his old apartment. He lived in an apartment in Koreatown for 11 years, and he was evicted because new owners came in and they evicted all the tenants with a 3-day notice because they wanted to hike up the rent so that they could make money. So that's how Joe and his cat Jezebel ended up homeless. And ever since then, he's been trying so hard to get into housing. He was so desperate to find housing. He tried really hard, and there was I didn't realize it at the time, but shortly after I met him, he had his entire deposit taken from him. So, and then after that, he had all of his things taken from him by an LAPD and sanitation sweep. He suffered so much cruelty and injustices, and yet he was always so kind and grateful. And he didn't have to, but he went out of his way to buy newborn clothes for Christine's baby. And I was just so heartbroken to hear of his passing. Sadly, his story is not common. It is Joe is special, but his story is not uncommon. In LA County, there were 831 people who died on the streets last year. This is completely unacceptable. California is the 5th largest economy in the world. This should not happen. Nobody should have to live on the streets and face all the indignities of being brushed aside, and no one should have to die on the streets, especially just a few blocks from where they used to live. I'm really heartened to see all of you here, and Joe would have been absolutely overwhelmed if he knew that so many people cared about him. Thank you for being here, and I hope that we can all keep fighting for equitable housing so that no one has to live and die in the streets. I'd like to turn this over to James. James is here. James? James also knew Joe through outreach. He was the one who found out about Joe's passing. Would you like to talk?
Huh?
Hi guys, my name is James. I do outreach with Jane and Christine and Will and John right there and a bunch of other people. I got to know Joe, 5-6 weeks ago. We used to hang out over there on 8th and Serrano. We've been doing outreach to him for the last 6 weeks. I mean, we just did whatever we could, got him some water, food, whatever we could. There's a lot of stories involving Joe because Joe was one of the nicest people that we encountered while we're doing outreach on the streets. You guys just heard Jay mention about Christine's baby clothes. Like when she was pregnant, I think you were pregnant when that happened. A homeless person brought like baby clothes to give to Christine. When I heard that story, I mean, it's amazing. You know, he's homeless, he doesn't have a place to stay, but yet he has it in him to go out and buy clothes for somebody that's doing outreach to him, who's obviously a lot more privileged than he is. So that was one of the things that really got me. I think out of the outreach people, I was the first one to learn about his death. We went out last Sunday. I had seen him the Sunday before. Crack jokes. We were talking about his cat. We were talking about how shitty it was because it was so hot that day. And then the following Sunday, I went out and I went to where his tent normally was. They had actually been moved across the street because there's some construction going on over there. And because of our relationship, we pretty much hung out for like two months. I went to the encampment and I said, "Where the F is Joe?" I mean, that's kind of how we're on those types of terms. I said, "Where the F is Joe?" And somebody came out and told me he had passed. And one thing I'm thankful for, the previous Sunday when I saw him for the last time alive, I had just moved apartments and I had a bunch of clothes that I was going to donate to Goodwill or whatever, but I was like, hey, you know what? I'm part of a homeless outreach program now, so I'm going to take these clothes around town, and if anybody needs extra clothes, I'll go ahead and give them out. So I asked Joe, and he had asked me for some shorts and some shirts, because what he was wearing was just kind of getting deteriorated. And then John, who I met last week, was actually going over to, he lives right next to the encampment, so he said, you know what, on my way over there, I'll be happy to drop off the clothes for you. So apparently John went, dropped off whatever I gave him, and I guess he said thank you. And then the following Sunday, when I found out that he had passed, he actually mentioned, and I know some of you guys are going to hear this for the first time, but the gal that was at the tent told me that while he was suffering through the heart attack, he actually wanted to thank all the outreach workers. For everything that we had done. So when I heard that, it kind of gives you guys an idea of like how nice this guy was, you know. I mean, here we are, like, I mean, I can tell everybody here is a lot more privileged than that guy was, and he was just the nicest person, and we're all just kind of almost at a loss for words. We're like really sad. So I mean, you guys have been hearing everybody talk. Everybody that's I think does outreach on a weekly basis, or there's people who do it on a daily basis. If you guys want to get involved, we never have enough volunteers to come out. You guys can contact Jane, Shelter for K-Town on Facebook. I'm part of Keep Koreatown. I'm also on the board of the Korean American Federation. Yeah, I just joined Wilshire Center Neighborhood Council. I'm just trying to get involved and do what I do. And I know for the last like 6 months, there's been a lot of noise about, are we going to have a shelter? You know, are we not going to have a shelter? There was a 682 Vermont project. The reason why I got involved in the Sunday outreach is because we don't want to get involved in all this bureaucratic like crap. You know, the fact of the matter is, yeah, whether we have a shelter or not, there are people that are on the streets dying right now. You know, so I mean, yeah, I encourage you guys to get involved. Thank you. Is there anybody else that's scheduled to speak?
Can I invite Shayla Myers up here? She's attorney at the Legal Aid Foundation of Los Angeles, and she got to know Joe.
I also have not used one of these, so my name is Shayla Myers. I am an attorney at the Legal Aid Foundation of Los Angeles. That's my day job. And I had the opportunity to meet Joe in the course of my day job, doing a presentation with the Shelter for All group. I'm not here today speaking as part of my day job. I'm speaking here today as a person who lives in Los Angeles, who had the opportunity to meet Joe, and who also knows that every day in Los Angeles, this city is making life hard for people like Joe. Every day in the city of Los Angeles, when a person is homeless on the streets of Los Angeles, they are breaking the law. The reality is the city of Los Angeles criminalizes homelessness to the tune of thousands of tickets every year. So when Joe was sitting on the sidewalk in Koreatown trying to get by, trying to survive, he was breaking the law. Because it is illegal in Los Angeles to sit on the sidewalk. When he had property that he needed to survive in Los Angeles, when he had a tent, when he had the clothes that were donated to him, he was breaking the law. Because a person in Los Angeles who is homeless can only have 60 gallons of property with them. The reality is when we look at folks who are homeless, who are houseless on the streets of Los Angeles, they are in a city that makes their very existence illegal. I am angry about what happened to Joe. I am angry that he died on the streets of Los Angeles. And I am angry that every day he was homeless on the streets of Los Angeles, this city considered him to be a criminal. Right? That's the reality for everyone who is homeless on the streets of Los Angeles. And quite frankly, as a person who is looking to my city council for leadership, I am happy that they will be standing in the council chambers to honor Joe, but it is the same council chambers that voted to make Joe a criminal.
That's right. That's right.
So I am here today. I am not here as a lawyer. I am here as a person in Los Angeles who wants my city to be better, who wants my city in its laws and in its policies and in the things we think about Joe and the people who live in this city who are homeless, who are the victims of 30 years of failed policies. I want our city to be better to them, right? And I want all of us to be better to them. So that is what I will say to Joe. I'm grateful I had a chance to talk to him. I am grateful that Councilmember Wesson came out, and I am grateful that the council will be thinking about him. I hope that they continue to think about him as they write the policies for the city. Thank you. Thank you.
Hi everyone, so next coming up is Claudia, and Claudia's from LA on Cloud9, and she's a big part of the She Does movement as well. She's organized with the She Does movement, and she's involved here because from the get-go when we heard there was opposition, she was involved in, we actually held a candlelight vigil right on this corner 2.5, 3 months ago. So she's gonna speak a little bit about Joe and her experience.
Hello guys. I learned about Joe like 2 weeks ago when Jane contacted the organization for some leashes for the cat. And now to hear that he passed away is really heartbroken because
Someone got killed.
it's happening a lot more on the streets, and this is not the first, second, or third candlelight vigil we've been going. And I mean, I'm looking at Joe's picture and it's sad because, you know, the way he had to pass away. And I've been doing outreach for 6 years now, and I see the homeless issue has increased, and unfortunately we're going to be going through a lot of more of these candlelight vigils, and I do feel that Joe deserves a lot more. You hear me now? He deserves a lot more than, you know, than what he got on the street. So I mean, my advice is don't ignore situations like this. When you see someone on the streets, talk to them, conversate with someone, see how are they disconnected from the system. I do a lot of outreach, and I'm also an intensive case manager for homeless services, so I know as well the struggle to get someone housed, especially with the rent increases too, that we can't find units for our clients with the amount of the voucher amount. I mean, it's become more and more difficult for us to house people in LA. So I know the struggle to get people into an apartment or a unit. So Joe, rest in peace. Sorry we failed you, the system failed you, and you know, rest in peace.
Hi everyone, so my name is Mel, and we started the She Does movement 6 months ago to promote building of new shelters for women. When we started it, we saw that there was a huge need in LA, there was a huge opposition. So we started supporting this shelter, but here, I'm here talking about Joe. To be honest with all of you, I never met Joe. I saw a video about him, I heard of him, but I never met Joe. But how I feel about Joe goes back to a couple of days when Lisa asked me to write a story about a woman called Veronica who came to us for help. She was 36 years old, 3 kids, she lost custody of her kids, and she's homeless. And she asked me to write a story about Veronica, and it took me 2 days. It took me 2 days because I was conflicted. I was conflicted because I didn't know whether or not Veronica deserved blame for losing her custody of her kids. It took me 2 days until it finally dawned on me what I was thinking of and what was going on and the reality for people. I come from a wealthy family. My mother never worked. She took care of me and my sister. But when I heard of Veronica, you know, when I connected the dots, what I understood was if ever my father was not in the picture, there would be no difference between what happened to Veronica and what would have happened to my mom and us. We have a system that's set to fail. Veronica became homeless because she couldn't afford the rent. And if the same thing happened to my mom, I would have been homeless too. And then maybe because of the circumstances, when you're trying to take care of your kids, when you're trying to survive, when you're trying to ward off people who are going to attack you, you make mistakes. Or maybe they just took her kids away because she was living in a car and they didn't think that was right by her, but she didn't have an option. I'm standing here in front of you guys as a brown person living in the US. I'm not a citizen, I'm a resident, I'm a brown person living in the US. I understand what it means to be targeted. I've been arrested by the LAPD. I had 2 cases, internal affairs cases against the LAPD. And when I heard about what happened with Joe, I was angry. I was angry at the LAPD, I was angry at our city council. But all through that anger, when I think, something always comes back to me. We can't blame LAPD. We can't blame the city council. We can't blame LAPD or we can't blame the city council because it's the people who smile. It's the people in this city who smile to your face, say they support some stupid charity somewhere out of LA, are the people who call the cops on Joe. It's those same people who see people like me and say, oh, you know what? That person doesn't belong in your neighborhood. Call the cops on me. And the cops come and arrest me because I'm in a Beverly Hills neighborhood trying to visit a friend. Don't get me wrong, I have a lot of things against the LAPD and the city. But I have more things against the people of this city. The people who smile to your face and make a phone call in the back. So why am I here talking about Joe? We started doing these candlelight vigils because we wanted a way to humanize these people. We wanted a way to show the people who make those calls that this was just people like us. The first thing I noticed, the first thing that hit me when I saw the video of Joe was when Mark, a friend of ours, is interviewing Joe, and Mark asked Joe, why did you buy Christine's daughter a dress? And Joe's answer was a puzzled look of why not? That is the humanity in Joe. That's the humanity in all of you here who are here to honor Joe. And that is how we need to remember Joe. Going from here, what we need to do is we need to make people understand who was Joe. Joe was the person struggling. Joe was the person waking up every day not knowing if the sound that woke him up was just his cat or it was the cops. Joe was the person who woke up and didn't know how his day was going to go because it was out of his control. But Joe was also that person who struggled through that and understood that he had to do right by Christine. I talked to you about that woman Veronica, the mother Veronica, because I know if Joe ever met Veronica, Joe would be the person to help Veronica take care of her kids. That's how we need to remember Joe. Let's remember Joe as one of the best examples of what a human being can be. That no matter what struggle we go through, we look forward to help the other person. We need to open the eyes of everyone else in this city. We need them to understand that yes, these are people going through struggles, but there is no difference between us and them. So in front of Joe, I want to remember Joe. I'm going to remember Joe by one thing of how when Mark asked Joe why he brought Rosie that dress, that puzzled look of it saying, why not? Share that video, make people know Joe. Let's remember Joe tonight. Thank you.
Yeah.
Hi, my name is William Jackson, and I'm a local resident here in Koreatown.
And I was also homeless on the streets as well. So I've seen a lot of Joes. I've known a lot of Joes. And it's also important to remember that every person here could wake up one day as Joe. You could lose everything, and you don't even know how it may happen, but it can happen. And this can be you. And if things don't change and quickly, somebody's going to be fucking lighting candles for you. You know, so it's an imperative. You know, like there's a war going on against the homeless right now, but not for the homeless. There's a war going on that is happening silently. And unless you are familiar with these conditions, you might not even see it. You know, as was shared earlier, you know, there's laws put into place specifically to affect the homeless. Those who have no place to sleep at night, except a tent on some corner. Even then it's illegal. Everything's illegal when you're homeless. Your existence is illegal. Why is that? Why is that? Why is it easier to, you know, send things and food and provisions to people in a whole other country you probably can't even find on a map, but it's harder to reach out and even acknowledge the existence of someone such as this, sleeping right in your doorway? And then you have individuals who want to complain, oh, you know, I give something to the homeless and they're right outside my business and blah, 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 and so on, but then are going to be against building a shelter. You should be the first one for building a homeless shelter. The first. If you want to get these people out of your way, helping those that are trying to help themselves. Resources. We lack the resources. But we can go and bomb the shit out of somebody on the other side of the ocean.
Yeah.
You know, these are things that we really need to look at here. Why do we have more prisons? Huh? Why is California the prison capital of the United States? We don't even have a prison population. We have a prison civilization.
Why?
Why? Why is that? And so the Joes of America, right? G.I. fucking Joe. Here's your G.I. Joe right here.
That's right.
And he's dead, and he was living in a tent, swept up by the cops, who took his medicine, his heart medicine, and the man dies of a heart attack. Think about it. So this is something that we really need to acknowledge. It's something we need to look at. It is an imperative. It is an emergency. It's already too late. We need to move that fast. It's already too late. Who can we save? Who can we help get housing before they too die on the streets? Why is it that we have a situation where the last thing that a human being can outwardly attain is a show of humanity via people doing outreach? And then he himself does something more for the people that have helped him than might have even been shown him for how long? So this is very important. And it's an issue that we all need to take a serious look at, because again, this is just someone that we found out about. Someone's dying right now. As I'm holding this speaking to you, someone is dying right now. That might not be if they had housing, if they had shelter, if someone even cared about their existence and being on this planet, and even recognized them as being a human being. Because if we don't recognize these people and the God that exists within them, well then how are you supposed to see it within yourself? Just as these candles are shining right now on his picture, we need to be a light in the world. We need to be a light through our actions. We need to be a light through our speech. We need to be a light through our mind, and to help illuminate the situation so that we can help bring people such as this who are suffering poverty and homelessness up into better living situations, up into a better existence, so that they too can even know their own value, since they're put down every second of the day by virtue of being homeless, by virtue of being impoverished. And in such a society as this, being homeless, being poor is the same as not existing. Why? Because you're not a consumer. And since you're not consuming anything, it's the same as not existing.
That's right. This
is part of the mentality that needs to change.
And so I just wanted to speak a little bit on that and just share some of my thoughts on what's going on here and what I believe needs to change and what needs to happen immediately. Thank you.
So coming up next is Carlos Morakin. Some of you guys know him, some of you don't. Carlos is involved in everything from affordable housing to public banking to when he heard about this project opening up more shelters for the people in LA, he came at it full force and he helped us, our organization, and she does, and organizations like Shelter K-Town come up to a level where we could actually have an impact. So, Carlos?
Am I the last speaker tonight?
Yeah.
Well, I want to make sure that tonight, I want to say thank you, first of all, for you being here tonight. I want to say thank you to Jane and the team of Koreatown that are taking it to the streets to do the outreach and meeting those people that otherwise no one else would know about. We know Joe tonight because people care enough to go out there to the streets and talk to people. That's what we know about Joe tonight. If those people didn't care, he would have died and no one would know about it. But tonight, I am inspired. In spite of this being a very sad day, I'm also inspired. I am inspired because I see a lot of faces that are rising up and I'm saying enough is enough. I want to see changes in my city. I'm inspired because I'm seeing people tonight that are saying I want to do something about it. Because what is being done about it is not enough. I'm inspired because we are seeing groups all over the city rising up and saying, let's organize, let's get involved, let's mobilize, let's put pressure on the city officials, and let's bring some real changes. It is happening, my friends. It is happening. 5 years ago, I was doing the foreclosure work. When I was seeing countless of people being thrown out to the streets through illegal foreclosures, and no one was rising up defending those homeowners. Very few people were speaking out. But now I see a lot of faces saying this crisis is really getting out of hand and it's affecting all of us. From foreclosures into unaffordable housing. It's creating more and more homelessness. When we see all these buildings going up, it's affecting the numbers of homeless people that we are seeing on the streets. I'm a mailman as a profession. That's what I do. And you cannot imagine the amount of people that are in serious trouble tonight, living paycheck to paycheck. Wonder if their car breaks down, they might not have enough to be able to fix it or to even pay the rent, because now they have to make choices between buying medicine and being able to pay the rent. I can tell you many other things that we can connect the dots. But tonight I'm inspired because you're here tonight. We're going to take this to the streets. We're going to take this to City Hall. We're going to take this to our neighborhood councils. And we are going to demand changes because Joe deserves better. Thank you.
Hey everyone, so why don't we all come up a little bit closer? Let's have a couple of minutes of silence for Joe.